Welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. We are visiting with Sharon Snowden, who is regent of the Catherine Richard Chapter, Daughters of the American Revolution, located in the city of Greene. She's also the state chairman of Constitution Week, which is what brings her here with us today. Good morning.
Good morning.
So Constitution Week, I think, Sharon, I'm amazed at what we don't know what we don't know.
That's
so
right,
how
yeah.
do we keep us from becoming so unknowledgeable about something as important as the Constitution of our country?
Well, Susie, with this important date approaching, it's important that everybody read the Constitution and know what's in it. And that week is September 17th to the 23rd, but they don't have to wait till then to read it. But that was the week that is assigned as Constitution Week.
Do we know how we came up with those dates?
Yes. Well, it was actually signed on September 17th, 1787. And the tradition of celebrating the Constitution was started many years ago by the Daughters of the American Revolution. In 1955, the Daughters petitioned Congress to set aside September 17th to the 23rd annually to be dedicated for the observance of Constitution Week. Mm-hmm. The resolution was later adopted by the U.S. Congress and signed into Public Law Number 915 on August 2nd, 1956, by President Dwight D. Eisenhower. And this is this act actually mandates all publicly funded educational institutions provide educational programming on the history of our Constitution.
What do you think? Should we have the day off?
Well, that's funny that you should say that, because I was going to end with Kareem Abdul's quote, and he thinks that we should make it a national holiday.
We might spend more time and actually take some time to read the Constitution if we had some time to do it. But I guess you make time for what's important, don't you?
That's right. That's right. And, the Constitution, there are only 4,543 words in it.
That's amazing.
And that doesn't count the amendments. With the amendments and everything, there's probably about 7,000 words. Mm-hmm. But it would take less than a half an hour to read it. So
you've read it how many times?
Several times. And each time there's something new,
That's where I want to go with this. What is it that you find each time, maybe the most recent time that you read it? What surprised you? What was like, these men were genius?
They were so intelligent and had such foresight to put this Constitution together that has lasted. This is the 230th anniversary of the signing of the Constitution. Mm-hmm. So, and it's the shortest document that governs any land. So, their foresight just amazes me. And some of the amendments amaze me, though, really, too.
Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah,
talk about one that the amendments that amaze you.
Well, the one is the 22nd Amendment, and that provides for how long a president may serve. Mm-hmm. Now, I might ask you, how long can a president serve?
Well, he can have 2 terms. But you might fill in somebody else's,
Very
right?
good.
Okay.
Very good, Susie. Yes, it's actually 10 years.
Okay.
Because he could fill in for somebody who resigned or died in the office. So that always gets people, they say, no, he can only serve 2 terms. And I said, well, read your 22nd Amendment.
Because you can be elected twice, but maybe you had to close out for someone else prior to that.
Right. Exactly. And it wasn't, I think it was President Tyler, whenever he became president, that was after Harrison had given the long speech and caught pneumonia and then passed away. There was really nothing in place in the Constitution for the vice president to move into that. But he did move into it, but it wasn't until later that they decided that, okay, the vice president, let's get this succession order in,
Well, like any crisis communication and writing a crisis plan, you always think of every scenario other than the one that you get hit with. So, and then once you get hit with a scenario,
Right.
you come up with a plan for that.
That's
so,
right.
lost a president shortly after he was inaugurated and had to come up with a plan B. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't it used to be that two people ran for president and the winner became president and the loser became vice president?
That's right. That's right.
So
And
how did they get parties to work together like that? I can't imagine that happening today.
Yes, yes. That happened early on, like with Adams and Jefferson, and even Washington. And they said Washington was actually unanimously elected, but he did have the most votes and everything. There was nobody running against him, but several of the states did not vote.
Really?
So, but he did get all of the votes that were cast.
Right.
So
Especially since nobody else was. So it was either a thumbs up or thumbs down vote on whether or not he'd be president?
Well, no, it's just that some of them decided not to cast any votes.
Wow.
Yes.
They wanted to not have any kind of a person in office? What was the thinking? Do we know?
Yes. Let me see. I don't know. I know that I had something on that, but
It's so interesting when you think back to the people who were literally making up our country as they went along. They knew what they didn't like. They knew what they were fighting against. But then at some point, don't you have to all come together and say, so what are we for? And maybe that would be a very good lesson for us today.
That's right.
To stop talking about, okay, we're against this, we're against this. What are we all for?
What are we
And
all
let's
for?
all move towards that.
Well, we're all Americans.
Yes.
And we all are governed under that Constitution. So, it's like Teddy Roosevelt used to say, we're Americans first. Nothing else. You're an American. So, yes, at George Washington here, I found it, all that voted for, 2 in Virginia and 2 in Maryland did not vote, and the 8 votes to which New York was entitled were not cast because the legislature could not come to an agreement on how the electors should be appointed. So there should have been 81 votes, and he received 69.
So, and when you're talking about the electors being appointed, we're talking about the Electoral College, and isn't that still something that's being talked about now?
It is. There's been over 500 tries to amend that, the Electoral College. And
Since it's come up, why do we have an Electoral College?
Well, I think that they set this up, in the original Constitution, and there was a lot of discussion on should they be popular vote,
Right,
and everything. So I forget the gentleman's name, but he came up with the Electoral College, and this was accepted after maybe 60 votes.
and it was
to put it together
to make it more fair between big states, small states. So, what have you?
Yes, that was more the Connecticut Compromise, I believe.
Okay.
Because the smaller states felt that, if you're going to have a senator or later on 2 senators from each state, then what about the representatives? The larger states are going to have more, but they decided that it was going to be by population.
Okay. So interesting.
Yes.
All right. So just to repeat, we are speaking with Sharon Snowden. She is reminding us about Constitution Day and ways we can celebrate and just how important it is. Sharon's from the DAR, that is the Daughters of the American Revolution, and specifically in the city of Greene. So your own chapter is very involved with things like this. What are you kinds of doing? I know you're doing things like visiting us here to
Right.
remind us. What kinds of things are you doing to
Right.
remind everyone about the Constitution?
We do a lot of displays. We put up posters. We put up signs, little placards, maybe to remind everybody that it's Constitution Week. We have Constitution Week speakers come in, and also we have our dazzling daughters who actually perform and sing the preamble. So
Oh.
Well, it's from the Schoolhouse Rock.
Oh,
from,
of course.
Yes, we the people.
In order to form a more perfect union.
Right.
Yes.
And,
okay.
And once you sing that, then you know it, forever. But and we go to different venues to perform that. But we have the speakers come in. We have displays. We try to get out into the public and pass out the preamble bookmarks and remind people of the Constitution. Write letters to the editor and get articles in the paper.
Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. Who wrote the Constitution?
Well, the father of the Constitution is James Madison.
Okay.
Now, he is considered the father because he had all the notes. He kept a journal every day, and he showed up into Philadelphia way ahead of everybody else. And he worked on that and kept his journal every day with all those notes. Now, he gave them they had a committee, but Gouverneur Morris actually put it together into the words. Now, that's a name that you don't hear very often.
I don't know his name. Say it again,
No,
please.
Gouverneur Morris.
Well, it's a great name.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he's from Delaware.
And he worded it for us?
He worded it. He actually came up with the preamble to explain what the Constitution was.
Why do we not know that?
Yes. Now I do a program. On his wife, so I can go and talk about him in doing the Constitution. He actually gave the most speeches at the Constitutional Convention. I think it was like 173 speeches he gave.
Which makes me ask the question, what does it take to be famous?
Yes.
if he did all of this and
Yes.
worded out,
Right.
wrote out the copy, crafted our Constitution that is held up for all these years, these centuries, and I'm hearing his name now for the first time.
And there's another one, Jacob Chalice.
What did he do?
He actually transcribed the Constitution. And you know what he was paid to do that? $30.
Really?
He was a clerk, though, and so after James Madison, who's the father of the Constitution, had all the notes, he gave them to the committee. Gouverneur Morris was in charge of that, wrote that up, and then they gave it to Jacob Chalice to transcribe it and print it, and he was paid $30.
$30. He had the best handwriting, or what was it? I would love to know
Yes.
how he got picked.
Well, yes, he was a clerk, so
Yes.
probably.
Now, you say you do a program on Gouverneur Morris's wife.
Yes.
Who is she and why is she important?
She was Nancy Randolph.
And Nancy Randolph.
Nancy Randolph was quite a colorful lady.
Okay, you're giving me a wide-eyed look. Maybe we don't want to go there. Okay. All right. So Gouverneur Morris's colorful wife, Nancy Randolph, and you will do a program on that for people if they ask.
Yes. And I do, because I talk about the Constitution and all he did with the Constitution,
And you get to know him through her.
Right.
Interesting.
Right.
So what have you learned about him that fascinates you so much through her?
Well, he was. He had a brother that was a loyalist. His the whole property that he had, they were very wealthy. But the property that his mother had was taken over by the British, so he didn't see his mother for 7 years probably, because he was working towards, the freedoms that we have today written in the Constitution. So it's rather interesting story.
I think we forget what they sacrificed, what they did for us. Will we ever be able to finish thanking them? I don't think so.
I don't think so. And there was, yes, let me just go over some of these. We had 55 delegates at the convention. 42 of them actually were there when it was signed. Now, people back then, though, they had farms to take care of and everything. So a lot of them didn't even show up. But the 42 that were there, only 39 signed it.
Isn't that interesting?
Signed
so the
it.
others abstained?
The three that did not sign it were Edmund Randolph,
Okay.
George Mason, and Elbridge Gerry. Now, they refused to sign it because it had no individual rights. And then that's where we come up with the first 10 amendments,
yes.
which would be the Bill of Rights.
Bill of Rights, yes.
Yes.
So interesting. All right, we are visiting with Sharon Snowden, learning everything about the Constitution. This is a good day to be listening today. Stay tuned. We're going to have more after these words. You're listening to Our Community.